Beneath the crushing weight of the Atlantic, deeper than sunlight has ever reached, lies a place where time no longer moves. A place sealed in darkness for more than a century. This is the lowest and most hidden deck once reserved for the wealthiest passengers on board. A private world of luxury, comfort, and elegance. And it is here, in these forgotten rooms, that the final hours of Millionaires quietly passed into history. The darkness that surrounds this deck is absolute. There are no beams of light piercing the water, no shimmer from the surface above. Only a faint, heavy haze moves through the corridors, stirred by slow underwater currents. What remains of this once luxurious space is wrapped in layers of rust, silt, and mineral growth. Yet even after all these years, the atmosphere feels strangely alive, as if the echoes of the past still linger here, frozen in place. As the camera drifts deeper into this level, the first signs of human presence come into view. Metal chairs that once held some of the wealthiest passengers now sit, fused to the floor. Tables are twisted and leaning, their wooden surfaces long dissolved. Rusticles drip from the ceiling like underwater vines, swaying gently, as if breathing. And then, through the clouded water, the first silhouette appears. A skeleton, sitting calmly in a once ornate chair, ribs covered in layered coral and mineral deposits. The posture is natural, relaxed, almost peaceful. It's as if the person simply stayed seated, quietly waiting for whatever would come next. The deeper the camera moves, the more this eerie sense of stillness intensifies. This deck wasn't built for panic, it was built for comfort. It held private smoking lounges, reading rooms, salons, and exclusive gathering spaces. But now everything that once defined luxury has been swallowed by the ocean. Velvet chairs have dissolved, leaving only metal frames. Fine wood carvings have collapsed into nothing. Decorative wallpaper is gone, replaced by rough plates of rust and dark mineral streaks. Yet the human presence remains unmistakable. In one lounge, a skeleton still sits at a table, torso leaned forward with both arms resting where expensive drinks once sat. The chair beside it is tipped over, and fragments of corroded table decorations lie half buried in silt. In this room, conversations once filled the air. People drank, smoked, laughed, and talked about their futures. Now all that remains is silence. The camera turns toward a corner of the room where another skeleton reclines on a lounge chair frame. One arm drapes naturally along the metal armrest. Coral spreads across the ribcage like a frozen shawl. Even through the decay, the room's grandeur is still visible. Intricate metal wall patterns curve around the chamber, softened and warped by time, but unmistakably elegant. It's a painful reminder of the wealth and comfort once enjoyed in these spaces. Farther into the deck, the camera enters a private smoking room. The heavy air seems to tighten around this space. A row of tall metal stools lines the rusted counter. Behind them, shelves that once held fine cigars and expensive spirits now stand empty, leaning forward as if bowing under the weight of the ocean. On one stool remains a skeleton, sitting fully upright, hands resting naturally in its lap. The position is so lifelike that for a moment it almost looks as though the person might still be waiting to be served. The silt drifting across the floor reveals how untouched this place has been. Nothing moves fast here. Everything is frozen, suspended, undisturbed. Time doesn't pass. It only settles. Moving through the corridors between the suite rooms, the camera reveals the damage caused by pressure and collapse. Decorative trim has peeled away, curling like dried leaves. Ceiling panels sag on twisted bolts. The floor is uneven, coated in dunes of soft sediment. And against one wall, a skeleton sits with its back propped against a luggage cart frame. The cart's wheels are fused in place by thick rust, and the skeleton's legs are folded gently in front of it, as if it simply sat down and never stood again. A little farther on, a suite doorway hangs partially open. The camera passes through the gap into a room that once represented the finest accommodations available. The bed frame remains largely intact, though it is heavily eaten away by rust. The mattress has collapsed into a mineralized shell. Pillow shapes still exist, preserved not by fabric but by layers of silt and crystal. On the bedside table, a crystal tumbler sits upside down, clouded by sediment. Beside it lies a small metal pillbox, fused shut by corrosion. In this silent room, the past feels heavy. Perhaps someone was here in the final moments, bracing for the inevitable. Perhaps a family once filled this space with conversation, laughter, and plans. Now, all that survives is the outline of what once was. The dressing room adjoining one suite offers a hauntingly clear glimpse into the everyday life of the wealthy. Tall wardrobe frames still line the walls, their doors twisted open by time. Inside, the mineralized shapes of once fine garments cling to metal hangers, hardened into ghostly sculptures. Color, fabric, and stitching are long gone, but their outlines remain, as if the ocean has preserved their memory, not their material. On a small dressing bench, a skeleton sits upright, legs neatly together, skull angled downward. It resembles someone preparing themselves in the mirror one last time. The vanity table beside the skeleton holds several heavy glass bottles, their contents clouded and frozen. A silver brush lies bristles down in the silt, the handle dull but recognizable. The camera drifts into a private bathroom with a deep, rust-covered tub. One skeleton sits inside, legs outstretched, posture calm. Perhaps they sought comfort here during the chaos above. Perhaps they simply waited. The silence in this space feels heavier than in any other room. Further into this deck lies a salon used by wealthy guests. Metal chairs circle a central table. Crystal glasses remain clouded but intact where they once stood. A glass decanter lies on its side, its stopper, a few inches away now, fused to the silt-covered carpet of the floor. A skeleton sits upright on a sofa frame nearby, legs crossed, one arm resting on the rusted seat. The pose is elegant, almost dignified. It feels as though the person accepted their fate in silence. In the games corner of the lounge, a skeleton leans over a circular table frame, hands resting softly where cards and chips once sat. Across from it, another skeleton reclines as if still waiting for their turn. The table's remains tell a quiet story. Everything was happening normally until it wasn't. As the camera drifts through a narrow service corridor, the disparity between luxury and labor becomes clear. Metal serving trolleys sit in place, their contents mineralized and fused. Plates, utensils, and cups form solid blocks of corrosion. A metal ice bucket rests on its side, a spill of silt trailing from its opening. This hallway once buzzed with activity, stewards moving quickly between rooms, discreet and efficient. Now, everything is still. Deeper still, past another half-collapsed section of wall lies a small room lined with individual safes. Some remain closed. Others have burst open from pressure and time. Inside them are lumps of fused coins, metal jewelry cases, and thick chains crusted with coral. Near one open safe sits a skeleton, one arm draped over the metal door, the other resting on the floor. Its posture feels tired, resigned, almost contemplative. As the camera moves into the final gathering lounge, the floor becomes uneven and the silt grows thicker. Rows of chairs face the same direction, some upright, others toppled. A small metal travel case sits on one seat, its leather long dissolved, leaving only the skeletal frame. A pair of shoes lies on the floor, still side by side. A wall clock hangs above the room, its hands frozen at a moment lost to history. In a narrow observation alcove, the camera finds benches beneath large, empty window frames. A skeleton sits on one bench, hands on its thighs, skull pointed toward the window. Outside is only an ocean of blackness. No light, no movement, only drifting particles carried by unseen currents. The camera begins to retreat through the corridor. One by one, each doorway passes by again. Each room heavy with silence, each skeleton preserved in a moment of stillness. The deeper the camera moves backward, the more this deck feels like a world sealed away from time. In its final moments, the camera reaches the vertical shaft that leads out of this hidden level. Rusticles drift like underwater snow. The darkness feels deeper now, knowing what lies within it. This is the darkest deck of the ship, the place where the wealthiest passengers faced their final hours, in silence, in darkness. And now, more than a century later, still waiting in the deep, untouched, unseen, and forever frozen beneath the Atlantic.